Here we go, back again with another episode of the Around the Show Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle Showalter, and I am reunited with my good friend, Brandon Mills. Brandon, it's great to have you back in the crib, in the home studio, man. Welcome back.
I'm glad to be back. Had a couple trials and tribulations there, but we're back, and let's get talking about it.
Yeah, it's been a funky couple of weeks. It's been either you or Christian in the seat, and then I had a guest host on a couple of weeks ago, and then last week, show didn't end up happening. Sometimes stuff just comes up, but we're back now, and sports are going on, man, just like life is going on around us. This is an interesting part of the sports calendar. NFL draft passed a couple of weeks ago. NBA playoffs in full swing going into the conference finals this week. Started last night in the East between Miami and Boston. Baseball's in full swing as well. Hockey, if that's your jam, it's not mine. That's going as well. So it's a good time in sports, but I want to go ahead and talk about a lot of basketball in the beginning of the show, and then we're going to talk some football in the end, and we'll pack it up and have a day. What do you say, Brandon?
Let's do it, man. I'm ready.
Let's go to Boston, man. Let's go to Boston and Miami. It's a wild series. I want to touch back before we get over to what happened last night and talking about a little bit of Game 1 in that Eastern Conference Finals. Celtics beating the Bucks in 7 was a bit of a surprise for me. That was the series that I circled big time. I wanted to watch those two teams go at it. And it was a slugfest, those 7 games. Giannis showed up for sure. How much of that series did you actually get a chance to sit down and catch?
I tuned in pretty aggressively towards the end of the series. I'd like to say games 4 through 7, I don't think I missed a minute. But the first few games, I wasn't too tuned in. But seeing both teams be able to go on the road down late in a series and then get a win was absolutely huge. I forget when was it Milwaukee game 5 that beat Boston in Boston, or is that the other way around?
That was game 5. Milwaukee won 110-107 in Boston.
And then when Boston could come back in Milwaukee and then beat them there, yeah, I mean that is just a testament to who Boston is. I think Jason Tatum is
that guy.
He's coming into his own if he hasn't already. People say he's certified, and he's like you said, that guy. I mean, seeing a young guy like that be able to lead a team to the defending NBA champions, not an easy series. I mean, in my opinion, that's probably the best series we're going to get in this NBA playoffs, finals included.
Yeah, most likely, I'd say.
Yeah, seeing Boston be able to grind that out and not take any minute for granted, it was pretty huge. It was good to see.
We're comfortable saying Giannis is the best player in the world now, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt.
I was curious because we've never had that conversation, but I feel like that's a well understood thing at this point.
Yeah.
That game 6 you were talking about, after losing by 3 at home to Milwaukee, Giannis had 40 in that game. Mm-hmm. They go back and they win in Milwaukee in game 6. Giannis dropped 44. He had 20 rebounds, 6 assists in that game, and they end up beating him by 14, I think was the final score discrepancy. 13 it was, 108-95. And that's largely on the back of Jason Tatum, like you mentioned, man. He had 46, 9, and 4 in that game. He shot 46% from 3, 7 of 15. And that was a big theme from this series. He took 73s in 7 games. When I was going through and doing some research for this, that number caught my eye because, watching the games, you could see Tatum was really comfortable pulling up from anywhere on the floor. But 10 threes a game for 7 games is nuts to think about. He took 15 in this game. There was a couple other games where he took 10, 12, somewhere in that range. He was just jacking it up, and that includes a game where he only shot 6 attempts and missed all of them, and he still finished with 37% from 3.
Do you, by chance, have his full series 3-point percentage up there?
37, 26 of 70.
I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it's not lights out Steph Curry type numbers, but I mean, when you're a 6'8" wing who can move the way Tatum does, he was incredible last night defensively as well, but in that series, he played very, very strong defense for a lot of it. I feel like Tatum is emerging into that same kind of tier. I think we have basketball tiers in terms of the players. There's the true superstars, the stars. If we want to say, tier 1A, tier 1B, I feel like this is kind of the moment we're watching. Tatum has been this guy, but this is kind of the big moment where we're watching him ascend from that tier 1B guy into that true upper echelon NBA superstar tier with guys like Giannis, guys like LeBron, guys like Kevin Durant.
And
I think he's special, man.
Yeah, and I think it's the first time you can say it's actually his team,
Yeah.
It's his Boston Celtics. It's Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and those guys, they're obviously play a huge part, but just like Miami was LeBron's team, even though D-Wade and Chris Bosh were there, and 100%. Same thing in Cleveland with Kyrie and Kevin Love. It is the guys' team at the end of the day, and Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, I mean, another good example of something like that. But this is certainly Jason Tatum's team. I don't know who's going to stop these guys, man.
It's going to be tough, but
It really feels like
they got a good team to face right now. I'll tell you that much.
I'm curious. I saw a poll on Twitter, and I want to mention this in the next thing that we talk about, where there was 4 players in it. It was Luka, Steph, Jason Tatum, and Jimmy Butler. And Jason Tatum finished last on that in terms of who the best player left in the playoffs is. Between Jimmy Butler and Tatum, who do you think's a better player at this point? Putting you on the spot there, not prepped for this.
After watching Jimmy Butler last night,
I mean, dropped 41.
Or if you asked me this question 2 days ago, I'm saying Jason Tatum. I think it's a really what have you done for me kind of question with these 4 players, because that's such a tough question. I mean, I don't know if there's a wrong answer, I guess, but
it's hard.
It's tough.
It's super hard.
I'm gonna go ahead and say right now, Tatum. But that's subject to change.
I would say Tatum for sure.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler's a great player, but I think like if we just talked about Tatum, 1A type superstar player in the NBA, especially going forward, he's still young.
Right.
I don't think Butler's on that level. He feels like the guys in that tier 1B. Like guys like Bam Adebayo, guys like Karl Anthony Towns, those are kind of the guys in his tier. I think Jimmy's probably upper echelon of that level, but I just feel like Jason Tatum has so many layers to his game. He can score from so many different places. He has such a smooth jump shot. He can pull up on the move, standing still. And he can play. He can defend, man. Like Jimmy Butler, obviously great defender as well. Like we've talked ad nauseum at points about that. But Tatum can play, man. Great two-way player. He can pass as well. I mean, a lot of high assist numbers in this last series. He averaged 27, 6, 6, 3, 5, 4 in the last series. And like I said, he took 73s, 9 more threes last night. The guy's just comfortable playing basketball from any role, any situation, any part on the floor. And I think Butler is the same way. I just think it's hard to pick anyone over Tatum, especially with the size.
Yeah, I agree.
Just a smooth athlete. What, did you get a chance to watch Game 1 last night?
I did not get to see the whole game, but I got glimpses and replays, and then I got to watch SportsCenter and see Jimmy Butler go off.
Jimmy was cooking, dude.
It's going to be a good series, man. I'd like to think it's going to be a dogfight for the Celtics. Like you said, you don't think anyone's getting past them. I do think the Heat have the ability to beat the Celtics. And I think we're on our way to see another Game 7. I mean, you just got fireworks in that series there. But I want to touch back on going back to the whole Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler argument. I think it's better for Jimmy when he's counted out. I feel like he's always been a player who's played way better lights out basketball when he's got that chip on his shoulder and when everyone's counting him out. You saw that with Minnesota. You saw it in his early days with the Heat. You saw it in Chicago. Jimmy Butler is a player who's going to shine when he feels like he's being counted out. And I feel like time and time again, when we get down to the stretch in the playoffs, Jimmy Butler is always the player that's going to get counted out. And that's a perfect example. When you give those 4 players, people are going to tend to put Jimmy Butler towards the end, just like we both did.
Yeah, any given night, though, he can go out there and give you...
Exactly.
He can give anybody in the league buckets. He can defend anybody in the league. He can distribute the ball. Like Jimmy Butler can play.
Exactly.
I think if he was a football player, you'd hear the lunch pail guy term thrown around. Like, he packs his lunch pail every day and just goes to work. He's a nice white-collar worker, one of those guys.
Agreed.
That's very Jimmy Butler, not a very highly touted recruit. I'm not quite. Was he a lottery pick when he came into the NBA? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember.
He obviously went lower than he should have. He should have been a very high pick in whatever draft he came out in. But that's definitely a fair thing to talk about when you think about Jimmy Butler. He can really show up any night and be the best player on the floor, no matter who's in the game. He's more than proven that. Absolutely more than proven that.
Agreed.
That other series that we got going on, the Eastern Conference Finals, obviously we see Golden State and the Mavericks matching up together. Luka Doncic leading his team over the Phoenix Suns in 7 games in an embarrassing Game 7 loss for Phoenix. Don't really even know what to think about that, even still a couple of days removed. So let's go ahead and move over there and talk about the Eastern Conference Finals. Then real quick, that Game 7, that was bad. That was so bad. I wasn't watching the game. I was off doing something, and I saw the score on my phone, and I got home and I turned the game on, and it was just pathetic. I mean, it didn't seem like the Suns even wanted to be out there on the floor.
At some point, I do think they threw the towel in. It's just that's typical. I don't like to say this because the Suns have been good for a while, but that's Suns basketball, man. They're always going to find a way to not get it done. You'd think back to all those things people would say about Chris Paul when it comes down to crunch time. He wasn't able to get it done again. All that trash talking Devin Booker was doing throughout the season, throughout the playoffs. Absolutely silent in Game 7. I mean, you just can't have that. If you want to be on that top A tier that we were just talking about, you can't show up to Game 7 and be flat-footed, foot in a bucket, and let Luka just splash threes on you all day long. I mean, it got embarrassing. Luka was up there jogging up the floor, pulls up to the elbow, does a little shimmy, and this looked like a lazy, nonchalant fadeaway three, and it's just wet. And I'm like, and it was hard to watch. Just seeing what the Suns could do all season, me backing them, telling everybody I think they're going to win the finals, and then they just go out and
just don't even show up.
Nothing. I mean, there was nothing. They got a lot to be disappointed in, but they're going to be back. They're a good basketball team. But I think it's a testament to who Luka Doncic is.
Absolutely.
He's a guy, and he's one of the best players in basketball right now, and he's one of the most special players to watch. Watching him play is just fun, and I think he plays the game right. He's got a good attitude about a lot of things. So kudos to him, man, to putting that team on his back and taking them this far. I mean, kudos to him.
I have 3 things from that Game 7, namely, that I really want to touch on before we move on to the Western Conference Finals. The first of which is it is officially final, nail in the coffin. The regular season in the NBA doesn't matter a single ounce. 64-18, the Suns went in the regular season, just completely didn't show up in a Game 7. You can be a great team all season, but if you don't do it in the playoffs, it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
And the NBA is kind of the case study of that. They're the most blatantly obvious that shit just does not matter.
Right.
The second of which, Luka Doncic is bona fide in that Tier 1A player with those guys that we talked about earlier. Guy is absolutely lethal. It's kind of insane to watch. You know, looking at him, he looks like me out there in the court, you know, just like a moderately built, thick white dude. And he just goes out there with these super slow-looking, awkward, clumsy-like moves that are actually like pinpoint precise and disgusting. Yeah. And he could just get shots off anywhere. He can go by anybody. The step-back jumper is just completely unguardable. It's just like LeBron James' step-back. But he had a move on like the left wing at the top of the three-point line where he like spun into, I think it was Mikal Bridges guarding him, and then planted his right foot and step back a couple of feet behind the three-point line. And it was just the most awkward-looking fadeaway jump shot I've ever seen, and it was just pure. Yeah. Not a single ounce of rim, all net. It was just gorgeous. So Luka just clearly, I think, set himself into that Tier 1A. If anybody wasn't talking about him like that before, they should now. Right. And the last thing is Chris Paul is going to retire without a ring. This was his last shot, it felt like. I don't know how this Phoenix Suns team is going to stay together and be able to overcome this a year from now. And maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe they're a little bit mentally tougher than I believe they are. But after watching them kind of crumble and fall flat in Game 7 this year, I have a hard time believing they'll be able to replicate that this year, especially because who knows what that roster is going to look like next season. So it really feels like this was Chris Paul's last shot to become a champion. And as unfair as that is to Chris Paul, because he's certainly a winning basketball player, you know, just because you don't win a championship doesn't mean you're not a winning basketball player. It sucks to see an all-time great, you know, go out without that opportunity to wear a ring on their finger at their Hall of Fame ceremony. Sucks.
It does, but it makes you think back, okay, why didn't he get the ring? First thing people are going to think about is, well, he didn't show up in Game 7. He didn't do the things necessary he needed to do, and that's not maybe the case every single season of Chris Paul's NBA career. But there's been pivotal moments where Chris Paul needed to show up and Chris Paul didn't show up.
Yep.
And that's just the way it fell for him. So, I mean, yeah, it does suck to see. That's just how sports go. And I don't think he has anyone else to blame, especially for this year right now. But yeah, all-time great, like you said, winning basketball player, winning mentality. Doesn't seem to have a lot of friends in the NBA though.
He got LeBron. He's got the banana boat guys.
There you go.
It certainly doesn't seem like there's a It certainly seems like there's a little coalition that doesn't like Chris Paul too much. The
Yeah.
Patrick Beverley comments, I mean,
he's gonna make comments about everybody.
yeah, I mean that's just the kind of guy
going
that
on
he
his
is. Which, hey, you know what? If that's your shtick, I respect it. I don't love it, but Patrick Beverley is Patrick Beverley. I think you went a little bit too far with the Chris Paul slander, though. Chris, come on,
there's a
got to know yourself.
There's a point where, just kind of one of those time and place situations.
Yeah,
I feel like for those words to be coming out, I feel like that conversation shouldn't have been heard by me. That's all.
It really is incredible though. That dude went on Get Up and First Take and all this stuff and was just dancing on Chris Paul's grave the night after an all-time great gets eliminated. It's funny, but it's not funny at the same time. Like you got to have a little bit more self-awareness and feel if you're Patrick Beverley, but still, like for the NBA and the soap opera that it is, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it looks like he's going on his Champions Tour and giving interviews all around. He
got eliminated in the first round.
He won the playing game, but I mean,
that's bad. Let's kick it over to the Western Conference Finals and talk a little bit about this series before I move over onto the next part of the show. The Warriors and the Dallas Mavericks. Curious to think your first thoughts. We're a couple minutes away from tip-off in Game 1. We're recording this on Wednesday, May 18th. It's now 5:58 p.m. Game set to tip off in 2 minutes.
Prediction time.
Yeah, why not?
Let's go.
What else is this show good for? I'll go ahead and take this one first. It's kind of kicked over the start to you. I'm thinking the Warriors got a little bit of magic going right now. Okay. Man. They feel like a team that I did say the Celtics earlier. Honesty moment. I forgot the Warriors were still playing this good of basketball. Looking back and seeing some of the stuff they were doing in the last round of the playoffs, I don't know, man. This feels like a team that can do some real damage going forward these next two rounds. Yeah. I'm thinking I'm picking the Warriors in this series.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it'll be a. Well, I said the same thing about Dallas last time. I'm not counting Luka out until he gives me a reason to count him out, but I will say this. Out of the 4 teams that are left, the Warriors are the only team that truly control their own destiny. When I say that, I mean they're the team that's really been there. They're the most experienced team. They're the most mature team. They're the team that should end up winning the NBA Finals. With the 4 that we have left, anything can happen, but it is their finals to lose. And it is their series to lose. They should win this series in at least 6 games.
I think they're the only team left with 3 stars, too. Right. I would say it was Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole at 22 years old, what he's doing is absolutely unbelievable.
He's going to be an insane basketball player.
Yeah, he's gonna get a big old check in a couple of years.
Yeah, if people aren't watching Jordan Poole right now or watching Warriors basketball at all, I get it, but try to tune in to Jordan Poole because that guy is a basketball player. If you like basketball, he's a guy.
Absolutely. I think one of the key things to watch in this series for me is the difference in the way that these two teams play. The Warriors are very team-focused, finding the guy with the best possible shot. Especially this was true back when they were winning championships with Kevin Durant on the team. But you always see these guys making the extra pass, good ball movement, all of that. The Mavericks do none of that. It is isolation ball for 48 minutes. We are going to just try to dribble past you or shoot over you the entire game. And it works. They just beat the number 1 seeded team in the West by literally just standing at the top of the key, waving their hands and saying, "I'm going ISO."
Let's try
this. And it's Luka he's unstoppable. It's seriously like an open gym. It's 5 guys out there just playing street ball, and it works. It's not supposed to. So the difference in this playing style between these two teams, I think, is going to be fascinating. I think it's going to make this a really interesting series, even though I really do feel like the Warriors are the better basketball team, and I think that's probably because of the way that they play. The Mavericks are so different from all of these other teams because really all those other teams kind of reflect that Golden State model where they play very team-focused basketball, the Heat especially as well, considering they don't have any of those true top-tier guys outside of maybe Jimmy. But I think the dichotomy and the difference between the two teams is going to be the really interesting thing in this series, not necessarily the actual basketball games themselves, but kind of the game within the game that's going on. Yeah. What style is truly better for winning? We might get an answer for that right now.
Well, I think Dallas is going to have to switch up their game a little bit on the offensive side just because of how good Golden State is at defending that ISO. Going to have to mix it up against a team like the Warriors. The Warriors have seen everybody. They've seen them at their best. So you're going to have to do a little more than 48 minutes of ISO and wave your hands when playing against guys like Steph Curry and Draymond on the defensive end. But But yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see. And I actually might go ahead and say Dallas wins game 1.
The game is in. Let's see where game 1 is. Game 1 is in Golden State. So the series doesn't start until a road team wins a game is the kind of the old adage for basketball. So if the Mavericks go out and take game 1, that would be absolutely massive for them, obviously. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Once we get out of here, I'm going to take my happy ass right over to the couch.
Sure thing.
Watching my dad's nice big TV, and we're gonna take that game in for sure. Yeah. It's a big TV. It's nice. He'll be happy to hear that when he goes back and listens to this.
Yeah.
So with the draft pass, we have our last big burst of new players entering rosters, which means we're going to have our last big shape-up of Super Bowl odds for the offseason. So with these Super Bowl odds for the offseason kind of finalized, I figured now would be a good time for us to go and take a look at those. So Brandon, behind me, I got those Super Bowl odds posted, courtesy of MGM. Beautiful. I want to shout out my good friend Kristen Ramiano for creating this graphic for me last night.
Thanks, Kristen.
Great friend. I appreciate you. She is the absolute best. So let's go ahead and kind of break down what we're looking at here. Obviously, the big thing at the top, you can see the Bills are the favorites at plus 650.
Surprises me.
It does surprise you. That surprises me that surprises you.
You really?
Yeah, man. I mean, they got every piece possible, I feel like. They feel like they probably had the best roster in the NFL, added Von Miller to that already really good defense. They're going to get Trey White back last year. He's probably a top 3 corner in the NFL when he's healthy. Josh Allen's a top 2 quarterback, and he might not be 2 in the NFL at this point. Steph Diggs, that old line can play.
In the NFL. I don't know if you remembered. He came out of retirement.
Are we still saying Brady's the best quarterback in the league?
100% until he's gone. Yeah, 100. I'm going to die to my grave saying that.
That's a conversation we'll have to have at some other point.
Right, yeah, we'll talk about that later.
We gotta laser in on this. But we were talking off air. We took a little break before this segment started recording about some of the interesting things that we see. And there's definitely some teams kind of in this second row right above my head over my right shoulder that really, really interest me. And I want to talk about the first one that really popped out to me. And I feel like the team that if I was a betting man, I would be putting money on first. That's the Los Angeles Chargers at plus 1,600.
I like it.
That number is crazy. To give them and the Broncos the same odds is nuts to me. I know they added Russell Wilson, but Herbert's better than Russell Wilson. The Chargers team is better than the Broncos team. Their defense is better. Their offense is better. Their skill players are better, in my opinion. I don't see it at all.
Right.
Why they would have the same level of odds. I would gladly put 100 on that and see if what that turns into. I'm on record saying I think they're going to win the division. I said that way before the draft when me and you were doing the episode where we lost camera halfway through, which was a great time. Got to record on the couch.
That was a blessing in disguise.
Now another team right below them, the Cleveland Browns, adding Deshaun Watson to a really, really good ball club. It really always felt like they were just a quarterback away. Plus 1,800 feels a little bit low for them. But you look at the teams above them. I mean, there's certainly. Most of them make sense. I think Dallas might be the exception. I think San Francisco, not really sure of what the quarterback is going to look like for them, is kind of an odd pick there at 1,400. But if Trey Lance is a guy, they could get that's a good price. If Trey Lance is a dude.
I'm going to bounce back to the Browns right now. Do we know if Deshaun's going to face a suspension or if he's playing all the way through? Is that confirmed?
So we don't know yet. I know that they're still investigating and kind of trying to make a decision on that. I think for sure he's going to face a suspension. It's just going to be about how long that suspension is. And that division's crazy this year as well. We've talked a lot about the AFC West, but the AFC North, dude. Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and then who knows what the Steelers are going to look like this year. Their odds at plus 6,600 feels absolutely insane. I don't know. If Deshaun misses some time, they could have a hard time getting into the playoffs. I hadn't really considered it from that angle.
I'm going to hold off on putting any action towards
Maybe
Cleveland.
That's why they're so low.
Well, no, I think that's even with Deshaun as their quarterback. I think that's a good number to be set at just because of, one, your division, and then two, I mean, the AFC is looking like it's going to be the tougher side of football this year.
For sure.
So I think with Deshaun as the quarterback, 1,800 is good. But if Deshaun misses, say, 5 or more games, no shot. I mean, I'm sorry. There's absolutely no shot. So I'm staying far away from the Cleveland Browns just because we're unsure of what it's going to look like. But Chargers are going to get all my love this year, dude. Plus 1,600. I mean, you're matching them up even with the Broncos, like you said. That's insane to me. I might double down and really, yeah, the Chargers at plus 1,600 is nice to me. What else? I'm trying to look here.
It's hard to say anything up there is a steal because they have to win the fucking Super Bowl in order for you to cash out.
May.
But the Chargers at 1,600, that feels like Vegas has to be dangling a carrot over our face and know something that we don't, because that just feels criminally low. Real quick, before we move on, I went ahead and looked at the Browns' schedule next year. So say he misses 5 games. He would miss a game against the Panthers, who are terrible, the Jets, who are terrible, the Steelers, who look like they're going to be terrible, the Falcons, who are terrible, and then the Chargers. So even if they don't have Deshaun Watson, there's a decent chance that with the football players they have on that roster, they win 4 of those 5 games.
That's true.
I think his suspension will probably either be a full season or a half a season.
Okay.
I mean, that it feels like it has to be trending that way based on everything that's going on. But who knows?
Yeah. And I'm going to say something to our listeners real quick. Me and Kyle both know it's May, so don't be that asshole who totally shits on our prediction that's wildly wrong. We know what we're looking at right now. We know what time of year it is. We're just having fun.
Yeah, there's a good phrase that I like to say. I don't know shit about fuck. And that is especially true when I'm talking about Super Bowl odds in May. But it's still an interesting thought process to go through really quick before either, because there's a couple of teams in that second row that me and you both want to touch on.
Yes.
So let's just go through that first row and say who we think belongs where they are. I think the Bills at plus 650, maybe not for you at the top, but they're in the right range, right?
Top 3 for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, that feels good.
They could even be at the top. Just plus 650 was a little wow.
Not a big enough payout, you feel like?
It's not even about the value's just low, and I don't know. I don't.
Well, let's
it's hard for me to wrap my head around the Bills winning Super Bowl. Maybe that's it. Maybe
they've had a lot of bad shit go their way. Yeah. So Green Bay and LA at plus 1,100 feels right.
Feels right. Hard to put LA any lower. Big Rams fan here, but winning a Super Bowl 2 times in a row is
next to impossible. It just doesn't happen.
The fact that they're even in the top 5 here is big, but it's hard to put them lower because they did just win. So yeah, I'll agree with them there.
Niners at 1,400. I don't feel good about that.
I don't know. I don't feel
even
good
with Jimmy.
about it.
Like I just don't feel good about it.
I was gonna say even with Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback, I don't see them getting. I mean, I think the Rams are gonna win the division again this season. And just with the other teams in the NFC, looking at Green Bay, like I said, the Rams, the Bucks. Yeah, I mean, there's no shot San Francisco's winning the Super Bowl. And if you want to put your money on big odds, pick a better team than San Francisco, I guess. I mean, look at everything they have here to choose
There's
from.
definitely better places to store your money. But the Bengals at 2,000 feels like a good bet.
Yeah, putting Bengals at 2,000, Colts at 2,500, Chargers at plus 16. That's all way better. I mean,
yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the Colts, because that was a big one that you were on before we pressed record. The Colts at plus 2,500.
That
feels real good.
That's my favorite line on the whole chart there, because how underestimated Matt Ryan is. I mean, he's got himself a line that can block, receivers that can catch. Jonathan Taylor, arguably the best running back in football. I mean,
yeah, I don't even think arguably. That's the guy.
Picked up Gilmore on their defensive side. They're a good team, a team capable of winning their division, capable of winning the AFC. I don't see why they stoop so low. Maybe
I think it's the question mark at quarterback, probably,
right?
And it's just where the money's going. I mean, the Colts aren't a sexy team. They don't have the superstar wide receivers. They don't have now they have Gilmore now, but they didn't have the superstar defensive players outside of Darius Butler, who's an absolute guy, or excuse me, Darius Leonard. Darius Butler, a media personality, former Colts defensive back. Got my brain confused. And they don't have the quarterback, so to say. But if Matt Ryan turns out to be an above-average guy, this team, he's just going to game manage for him, because Jonathan Taylor is going to run for 2,000 yards next year, it looks like, behind that offensive line. I think the Colts at 2,500 looks really, really pretty. I wrote last year when Carson Wentz got over there that I think they were a legitimate Super Bowl contender if Carson Wentz could show up at all on a consistent basis, because that roster was so good. They had 7 Pro Bowlers last year.
Yep.
7.
They were one of
You have 22 starters. They had 7 Pro Bowlers.
One of the most surprising teams in the NFL last year were the Colts. I counted them out from the very beginning, and to see them put together wins the way they put them together, see Jonathan Taylor literally put the team on his back and carry him all the way to the end zone. And seeing him open up at 2,500, I mean, I got my eyes on that for sure. I might just go home and put something down now.
I think another thing that might have those odds so low is how bad that the week 18 loss to Jacksonville was last year to lose out on a playoff spot. Probably just turned some people off of the franchise for a while. I know that was bad. I mean, they had people wearing clown masks in the stands in Jacksonville, and they lost to that team. Like, that's bad. That's bad. Anything else you want to say about the Colts?
No, I mean, from there, the list for me personally kind of stops there. I don't think maybe the Eagles for you, just not to break your heart, but I don't think anybody else in this league is worth
I didn't want to be the one to say the name because I didn't want to be the homer. But
you guys are good.
2,800 for that. 2,800 for them doesn't feel like a bad bet.
I think you guys are going to win the division.
I think so too, and I think the Eagles are plus 240 to win the NFC East. That's free money, everybody.
Right.
That's free money. If you look at the rest of that division, plus 240, yeah. That's you got to hammer that if you're a gambling
what's
man.
The Cowboys?
I think they're minus
110. Minus
That's
something. Ridiculous.
I mean, they got worse. Dallas got objectively worse. The Eagles got miles better.
Much better.
If Jalen Hurts takes a step this year, they're a Super Bowl contender.
One step forward.
They added James Bradbury today, the Giants corner who was a Pro Bowler last year. They got cut as a cap casualty. They signed him to 1 year, $10 million. Pair him with Darius Slay. They have the best two defensive backs, or the two best corners in the league in terms of the best pairing together on one team. They can defend the run up the middle. They can run block like nobody's business. They had the best rushing attack in the NFL last year, and they didn't start running until midway through the season when they realized they couldn't throw the football.
Exactly.
That team has a plan of what they want to do, and I think adding A.J. Brown adds another layer to that team. If Jordan Davis turns out to be something special, if Nakobe Dean can contribute as a rookie, this team could definitely win a couple playoff games, honestly, even with – I think their floor is the playoffs. Truly, I think their floor is a wild card spot. I think their ceiling is probably a conference finals game. I don't think they're gonna win the Super Bowl this year, but
it's tough.
I didn't think they were gonna win in 2017 either, and it ended up happening.
That's true.
All it takes is a leap from a quarterback with a good roster.
Yeah, I've said it since day one, man. If you can get Hurts in a comfortable situation where he can come into his own within his time and not have to. It's hard to say because it's the NFL and you're a quarterback. You just got to go get it done, but not have to rush his process. If he could just come into his own skin and play Jalen Hurts football, because I've been watching him since he was at Oklahoma and even when he was at Alabama, he's got the mentality of a winning quarterback. And if you can get him playing good football in a great rhythm, they're going to be scary. With all the names that you just mentioned on the other side helping him out, they're going to be a scary football team.
And that's a good place to be in as a quarterback with his skill set, with what head coach Nick Sirianni wants to do with the offense. Hurts is kind of the guy that they want in the building in that situation. Right. Obviously, if you can't get a guy like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen, clearly you take that.
Yeah.
But with the offense they want to run, Jalen's a good fit. He can run, he can throw on the move. He's able to make guys miss. He is incredible with the football in his hand. He's genuinely a running back when he tucks the football and runs, but he can also throw the football. I was tagged as a Jalen Hurts hater. I'm not sure if you caught the show last week from Casey, because we've had a couple of conversations where I haven't been too kind about Jalen. He caught me after the playoff game last year, so Jalen caught a couple of
he's done
bullets on that one.
He's done some things that aren't very good, especially if you're an Eagles fan.
But he just needs to be more consistent. Right. Like that's the big thing. He can make the big play. He can make, the plays that are going to show up on SportsCenter later. It's what does he do on 2nd and 7? What does he do on 3rd and 4? What does he do on 1st and 15 after a penalty? It's the little plays that make your stat line end up looking the way that it's supposed to versus, you have the one big play for 70 yards, but the rest of your game isn't good. That's kind of what he needs to bridge the gap between being this home run hitter that strikes out all the time. Spray some base hits around, man. Let's just live to fight another day, hit your guy in stride, let him go pick up some yards after the catch. And I think a guy like A.J. Brown is going to do wonders for him. Pairing him with Devontae Smith is going to be so much fun.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to have a lot more fun on Sundays this year than I did last year. That at the very least. We're talking about Super Bowl odds here, and it's turned into an Eagles fans tangent.
Yeah, and I'm still going to keep going on it. One thing I could say about Jalen is that this year he's the quarterback that the Eagles staff wants. He's the guy in the room. He's your number one quarterback. And I think with that being understood and that feeling being known with Jalen, I think he can kind of step out on the field and not be afraid to fail and go out and not be so timid after you make one good big play and then you're coming down dumping off 5-yard passes and not being as consistent as you should be as an NFL quarterback. I think when you know that you're the guy in the room and that when the spot is yours to take and when you feel like the coaches are backing you, you play a little loose, you have a little more fun with the game, and that's where consistency comes in.
The last thing that I'll say to touch on this, and then we can maybe wrap up our thoughts on some of the teams in the back half and then wrap the show up. It's Jalen's team.
Right.
The Eagles have given Jalen the keys to a fucking Maserati at this point with the surrounding cast that he has. Howie Roseman has done a great job in the last couple of years getting some of these first-round picks, getting some older guys off of the books and bringing in some good young talent.
Quietly a good job, by the way, too.
And this is a guy who a lot of people wanted fired. A lot of people wanted fired on Eagles Twitter, all of the message boards, all the websites I would be on. They wanted Roseman gone, all Eagles fans, myself included. I was guilty of it too, but he's shown why he's able to make up for some of the shortcomings in terms of his ability to scout, especially the wide receiver position. The guy said, I can't scout wide receivers. I don't know what I'm looking for. I took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf. I'm going to go just trade for A.J. Brown. Fuck it. Like, let's go give him $25 million, and I don't have to worry about the position anymore. We're good. We got Devontae. We got Quez Watkins, who's a great slot receiver. He's going to be a good option for them as well. And we got A.J. Brown. We're set at the position. They got Dallas Goedert as well. They have quietly turned one of the worst pass-catching groups into a very, very good pass-catching group in just the course of 2 seasons.
I agree.
It's awesome. So this is Jalen's year. It's the same thing as Tua, which are the team right below the Eagles in terms of the odds.
Well,
if you don't produce this year,
2 totally different feelings in those quarterbacks.
We can talk about Tua on another episode. I think that'll probably lengthen this one a little bit too much because I know both of us have a lot to say about that.
Not a lot of good either.
But this is absolutely correct. This is Jalen's year. If you put up, you're going to be the guy. They'll probably reward him with a contract. If you're not the guy, they have 2 first-round picks next year, and they have a spot that a veteran quarterback would absolutely look out and circle and say, I want to play there.
Yeah.
So we'll see, I guess. Real quick, before we cut the show, anything on the bottom half interest you at all? For me, it's a hell no. It doesn't feel like any of these teams have a chance. I mean, Chicago is the only one that's like sort of. I mean, I'll stand corrected. The Raiders also feel criminally low. I don't even think I've noticed that until that point. 3,500.
How are the Vikings? What are we looking at with the Vikings this season?
I mean, they still got Kirk Cousins. Like, who cares? They're not going to do it. The Vikings are cursed. I know a lot of Vikings fans from my time in South Dakota. That franchise is dead. They'll never win a Super Bowl. Sorry, Vikings fans.
You know what? I think this is going to seem really mean, but I think the Falcons are too high.
Dude, they're bad.
They're bad, right?
They're so bad.
I think they are too high on that list, and it's mean to say.
How many games did they win last year?
3?
With Matt Ryan. Oh, they won. No, it's 2020. That's 2019. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Go ahead and say what you're going to say.
I pretty much said it all. I just think the Falcons are pretty high on that list, being tied with the Panthers and the and the Giants.
They went 7-10 last year.
Giants are low too. I think the Giants aren't terrible. They're not.
You know, if the Giants weren't cutting some of their best players, I would agree with you. I think the Giants are. I think the Giants they just can't release James Bradberry. Now he's an Eagle. I'm sure that had something to do with why he chose to sign with Philadelphia, so he gets to go play New York twice. So the Falcons went 7-10 last year. First game 17 games. Excuse me. Still feels weird to see a 7-10 record on there. Don't like it at all. Eventually, we're going to see 7-11 because there's going to be 18 games. But yeah, the Falcons that was with Matt Ryan. Now they have Marcus Mariota, who's, former number 2 overall pick. Go Ducks.
How do they not go out and get a guy?
They don't want to win. They're trying to rebuild. They went for Deshaun Watson. It didn't work out, so time to rebuild. I think the Giants are in a similar situation. They kind of kicked off their rebuild this offseason. The Jets still had a really good draft this year. Almost made my top 3 favorite drafts classes that we went over last week. Me and Casey did. The Lions had a great draft as well. And then Houston at the end. I said off the air, Houston at plus 25,000 is. I don't know how they're the last team.
Throw $10 on it.
That's all you, man. I'm not a gambling man.
Oh yeah, neither am I. What?
Uncle Sam needs to stay away from me with those allegations.
All right. Last thing before we go, I want to hear it from you. May
18th,
6:30 p.m. Months and months and months before the Super Bowl. Who's winning it?
It's hard for me to not say Buffalo, but I don't want to be boring and pick the top team on here. But it really feels like it's going to be Buffalo. I mean, they've been so close. They easily could have been there last year if overtime rules were different. I'll say if I wasn't betting Buffalo, I'll just take them out of the equation. If I was picking it in terms of who I think is going to win the Super Bowl, I would probably say a team like the Rams or the Chiefs. But if I'm picking it based on the odds, I would hammer the Chargers. Absolutely hammer. Right. I would be sprinting to turn my ticket into Vegas.
Yeah, I was more asking you, not gambling aside, and these odds aside, just seeing where these teams line up on the list.
Yeah, I think it's Buffalo for the reasons I mentioned earlier.
I'm going to go out and say Green Bay. I think they're going to turn it around, and I put them above my team, the Rams. I put them above the Bucks. And Aaron Rodgers just got to get it done, man. I think it's a good time. Maybe you could say they degressed a little bit, but
I mean, you trade Devontae Adams,
you digress. If you lose Devontae Adams, you digress. But they still got guys, man, and I think if anything, that could be a dark horse on that list to win the Super Bowl.
I would love for them to go out and win the Super Bowl, man. I would love to see Aaron Rodgers win another ring. I think it's criminal.
Me too.
That he's only won one Super Bowl with how good he is. I'm trying to find their pass catchers really quick, Green Bay, because we just mentioned they lost Devontae Smith.
Lazard.
So they have Lazard, Randall Cobb, Christian Watson, Amari Rodgers, and Sammy Watkins. And then they had Robert Tonyan at tight end. So, and then they throw the ball a lot to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, who are both really good football players.
I think picking up Sammy Watkins was big.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a move they had to make. It's just kind of a question of Sammy Watkins. The question always is, how consistent is he going to be and how healthy is he going to be? And how much are those two things tied together?
Yeah, you're right.
So you say Packers on May 18th. I say Buffalo Bills.
That could change on May 19th, too. So
yeah, I mean, we don't know nothing at this point, man. We don't know a damn thing. There we go. The catchphrase. Well, all right. It's been an absolute blast. I'm so glad we finally got back in the studio, man. It's been a rough couple of weeks trying to figure everything out, but hopefully next week we get Christian back as well, and the whole gang will be back together.
Good deal.
So until then, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode. Feel free to check the odds out for yourself and make informed decisions on gambling, depending on where you live and the legality of it, or just call your bookie. Whatever suits you, man. Until next time, we will see you guys later.
Thanks, guys. See you.